Here we are at the Osirion, possibly one of the most impressive sites in Egypt, possibly the world. This is officially dated to the time of Seti I, which would have been completely roofed over, thousands of tons of stone in this whole construction, and it really is something to behold.
Hidden deep in the desert sands of Abydos, approximately 350 miles south of the Great Pyramid of Giza, stands the Osirion, a monumental structure shrouded in mystery. Its origins, purpose, and design have baffled archaeologists and researchers for decades. Unlike the well-known temples of ancient Egypt, the Osirion defies traditional pharaonic architectural norms, leading some to believe it could be the product of a much older, technologically advanced civilization. Could this ancient structure hold the key to a forgotten chapter of human history? The first puzzle presented by the Osirion lies in its striking architectural divergence from typical Egyptian temples. While most temples of the pharaonic era adhere to a linear rectangular layout, the Osirion's design breaks the mold with its unique L-shaped configuration. This anomaly alone raises critical questions about the intentions behind its construction. Was it built for a different purpose than Egypt's standard religious edifices? Or does it reflect the architectural style of an unknown, perhaps much older culture? Adding to the mystery is the Osirion's relationship with the nearby temple of Seti I, built during the 19th dynasty. Archaeological evidence suggests that the Osirion predates the temple of Seti I by centuries, if not millennia, implying that the site held significant importance long before the reign of Seti. This ancient structure was already in place when Seti chose to build his temple beside it, as though honoring an ancient relic from a bygone era. What made the Osirion so significant, and why did it attract the attention of the Egyptian kings? The sheer scale of the Osirion is awe-inspiring. The core of the structure is composed of massive rose granite blocks, some of which weigh an astonishing 100 tons. These immense stones were quarried from Aswan, located over 200 miles to the south, a logistical challenge that seems insurmountable given the tools and technology traditionally attributed to the Egyptians of the time. Moving these massive blocks across hundreds of miles of desert, and then precisely positioning them in a desert location far from the Nile, is a feat that defies explanation. Without evidence of advanced machinery, how were these massive stones transported and assembled with such precision? The Osirion's architecture, featuring a sophisticated double-layered roofing system and interlocking wedges, suggests a level of engineering knowledge far beyond what ancient Egypt is known to have possessed. The use of granite, a hard and unforgiving material, only adds to the mystery. Working with granite requires advanced tools and knowledge, skills that, according to historical records, the Egyptians had not yet developed during the early dynastic periods. Another striking feature of the Osirion is its complete lack of Egyptian hieroglyphs or artwork. In contrast to nearly every other Egyptian temple or monument, which are richly decorated with carvings, inscriptions, and illustrations, the Osirion is eerily bare. Throughout Egypt's history, temples were frequently renovated, with each generation adding new inscriptions and artwork. Even more unusual is the Osirion's subterranean layout, which is highly uncharacteristic of Egyptian temple architecture. The entire structure lies 15 feet below ground level, leading some researchers to propose that the temple could be far older than its surrounding counterparts. The idea that it predates the buildup of sand and soil that has accumulated over millennia suggests a timeline stretching back to an era before the sands of Egypt's desert even existed in their current form. Water erosion patterns found on the limestone enclosure surrounding the Osirion add yet another layer to the mystery. Some researchers argue that these erosion marks could only have been caused by a much wetter climate, possibly dating the structure back to the end of the last ice age, when the region experienced more rainfall. If true, This would place the Osirion's construction over 10,000 years ago, far earlier than the dynastic Egyptian civilization. Perhaps the most intriguing feature of the Osirion is the presence of water within the structure itself. Modern seismic technology has revealed that the visible portion of the Osirion is only the uppermost part of a much larger complex, which extends at least 50 feet below the current floor level. Beneath the surface, seismic tests have indicated the presence of hollow chambers, which have yet to be explored due to the water that continually fills the site. Despite multiple attempts, archaeologists have been unable to drain the water, which seems to replenish at an alarming rate. The source of this water remains unknown, and its continuous flow presents a baffling enigma. Some researchers suggest that the Osirion's complex hydraulic system, which includes channels, basins, and possibly sluices, was designed to control and manipulate water flow within the structure. The precision of these features points to an advanced understanding of hydraulic engineering, something not typically associated with ancient Egyptian technology. While the Egyptians were known for their use of irrigation canals and basins for agriculture, the Osirion's water management techniques are far more sophisticated. The mysteries of the Osirion continue to deepen as researchers attempt to unlock its secrets. The constant replenishment of water within the structure defies explanation. James Westerman, a renowned archaeologist and historian, has spent decades studying the Osirion. His efforts to pump out the water from the structure have been met with frustration. Even with a pump capable of removing 500 gallons of water per minute, the water level continues to rise, seemingly replenishing itself faster than it can be removed. Westerman's words capture the perplexity of the situation. Water is emerging from inside the structure. This shouldn't be happening, especially in the desert. Something strange is going on here. In 2023, Westerman's team employed advanced technology to analyze the water within the Osirion, measuring its pressure, temperature, conductivity, and chemical composition. The results were astounding. The water in the Osirion was found to have a unique chemical profile, different from the surrounding wells and aquifers in the area. Westerman's research suggested that the water was being forced up through the structure, almost as though it were being propelled by some unknown force. The water's chemical composition and isotopic profile indicated that it did not originate from the nearby Nile River or local aquifers. Where, then, is this water coming from? The Osirion's water behaves more like that of a geyser, but without the typical signs of volcanic activity. Is there an underground spring or reservoir beneath the structure, or could the water be flowing from a deeper, as yet undiscovered source? One of the most intriguing aspects of the water is its unique properties. Westerman conducted hydrologic studies and found that the water within the Osirion was drinkable after filtration. Over time, Westerman began drinking the water regularly, and he noticed something extraordinary. His eyesight began to improve. A lifelong sufferer of nearsightedness, Westerman eventually no longer needed glasses, a fact that was confirmed by an eye test. Could the water from the Osirion possess healing properties? Westerman believes so and continues to drink the water, attributing his improved vision to its mysterious qualities. Yet another anomaly is the temperature of the water. The water outside the Osirion measures a consistent 16.9 degrees Celsius, but the water inside the structure is significantly warmer, measuring 23.8 degrees Celsius. This temperature difference defies the second law of thermodynamics, which states that heat cannot spontaneously transfer from a cooler to a warmer body. Something within the Osirion is heating the water, but no one knows what it is or how it is happening. As researchers continue to study the Osirion, its true scale and purpose remain elusive. What is visible today may only be the tip of the iceberg. The structure extends far beneath the surface, with hidden chambers still unexplored due to the constant flow of water. Could these underground chambers hold more secrets about the origins of the Osirion and its builders? As we probe deeper into the Osirion's mysteries, we are left with more questions than answers. One thing is certain: this ancient structure is far older and more complex than we ever imagined, and it may hold the key to understanding a lost chapter of human history.
Beneath the sands of Egypt, beyond the iconic pyramids, lies a temple holding secrets that could rewrite history. Welcome to Dendera. Sanctuary of Hathor, goddess of love and vengeance, joy and fury, music and destruction. How could one deity embody such extremes? What sacred rituals unfolded within Dendera's hidden chambers? And what can this enigma reveal about the ancient Egyptian worldview? For millennia, these mysteries lay buried beneath the desert. Now we'll journey deep into Dendera's heart, deciphering cryptic messages unseen for thousands of years. We'll explore a world where myths came alive and the boundary between earth and sky blurred. The ancient Egyptians gazed at our same stars, yet saw a profoundly different cosmos. Join us as we unlock the secrets of Dendera and its captivating goddess, forever transforming our understanding of one of history's most enduring civilizations.
Imagine if fragments of secret knowledge from ancient civilizations had survived through time, reaching us only in cryptic symbols that were indecipherable to all but a select few. Such hidden knowledge would be expressed in a language accessible only to initiates, guarding its deeper meaning from the masses. In southern Egypt, within the Temple of Hathor in Dendera, lies artwork that has intrigued researchers for generations. At first glance, the carvings seem like nothing more than ornate art objects, but when viewed together in a specific arrangement, they provoke a profound question. Could this be an encoded representation of advanced technology? The artwork in question is carved on the panels inside the temple, hidden within its underground crypts, places not meant for the eyes of casual visitors. This has led some to believe that the carvings might represent secret knowledge, deliberately stylized to obscure their true meaning. Much like Francis Bacon's method of steganography, where a message is hidden within another message or object, these artistic depictions may conceal a deeper truth. Could the symbols be an encrypted representation of ancient technology, with connectors, coils, and electrical components disguised as sacred motifs? The most striking image found inside the temple is one that appears repeatedly across 6 panels. A large, bulb-like object, emerging from a lotus flower at the base. Below the bulb are human figures. One of them appears connected to the object, while others stand with open arms facing a serpent-like figure. There is also a figure with a tail and 2 knives, commonly interpreted as the god Thoth. Below the entire scene stands the Jed pillar, often described as the backbone of Osiris, with the bulb interpreted by Egyptologists as a representation of the placenta, inside of which coils the snake. This imagery has come to be known as the Dendera light, and some researchers believe it could represent something much more than spiritual symbolism, perhaps an ancient form of technology. The stylized motifs resemble elements of modern electrical apparatuses, such as frequency transformers, with the Jed pillar mirroring the structure of modern radio frequency transformers. Could the Jed actually be a piece of operational equipment disguised as a religious symbol? Consider the possibility. Ancient priests, unfamiliar with modern electrical devices, might have described these objects in terms familiar to them, such as the backbone of a god. Supporting this theory is the legend that the goddess Hathor, to whom the temple is dedicated, was said to have used certain objects to heal people. This brings us to one of the first high-frequency transformers in modern history, the Udin coil, a device related to the more famous Tesla coil. When connected to handheld electrodes, this coil was used in early medical treatments to apply high voltage to the patient's body. A dramatic violet glow would appear when the electrode was energized, similar to what one might imagine from the glowing bulb depicted in the Dendera relief. The technology of high-voltage medical devices, like the vacuum tube electrode, bears striking resemblance to the artistic representation in the temple. Could it be that the Jed pillar functioned as a high-frequency transformer, and the bulbs as primitive electric lamps or even X-ray tubes? The similarities between the Crookes tube, a device used in early X-ray machines, and the Dendera bulb are too striking to ignore. The Crookes tube, developed in the late 19th century, created a glowing effect when powered by high voltage. If we overlay the design of the Crookes tube with the Dendera images, the match is almost perfect, not just in appearance, but in function. The placement of the anode in the Crookes tube is identical to the Jed pillar in the artwork. Is it possible that the ancient Egyptians possessed knowledge of electromagnetic phenomena long before modern science uncovered it? The notion that ancient Egyptians may have been familiar with advanced technology seems outlandish to many. But consider this: the first high-frequency transformers and radio frequency technology were not invented until the early 20th century. Yet the resemblance between these devices and the Dendera reliefs is striking. When Auguste Mariette published his fundamental work on the Temple of Dendera in the late 19th century, Thomas Edison had not yet invented the incandescent light bulb. It wasn't until Sir William Crookes, with his famous Crookes tubes, began experimenting with radiant matter and high voltage that the concept of X-rays and plasma became a reality. Crookes's experiments with vacuum tubes were groundbreaking, allowing Röntgen to discover X-rays in 1895. When these early X-ray machines are compared to the Dendera imagery, the structural similarities are difficult to dismiss. Even the floral design in the artwork mirrors the part of the Crookes tube where the electrical connections would be made. Some researchers, such as Italian inventor and engineer Dr. Clarbruno Verduccio, argue that the similarity between the Crookes tubes and the Dendera artwork is far too precise to be coincidence. A similar approach is seen in an issue of Scientific American, which published a diagram for amateur scientists showing how to build a small high-voltage generator to create plasma discharge in a lamp tube, essentially a DIY X-ray generator. The design in the magazine and the one depicted in Dendera align almost perfectly. This plasma discharge could pass through materials, much like modern X-rays. Could the ancient Egyptians have harnessed a similar technology, using it to generate light or explore materials? On another panel in Dendera, we see an object with what appears to be lines extending from it, often referred to as a necklace, but possibly an artistic rendering of electrical wires. The spheres on the lines could well be insulators, similar to those used in modern electrical equipment. This type of insulator was used in appliances until the late 20th century to manage high voltages and temperatures. The object in the relief seems to be connected to a battery-like device, similar to early electrical circuits used in combustion engines. Could the ancient Egyptians have developed an electric pulse generator hidden in plain sight through the language of symbolism? One of the most famous examples of ancient electricity is the Baghdad battery, a device capable of producing small amounts of electrical current when filled with vinegar. This shows that ancient cultures had at least a basic understanding of electricity. On one of the Dendera panels, there is a depiction of what appears to be a voltaic pile, similar to the first electrical battery created by physicist Alessandro Volta in 1794. Was this technology used to manipulate materials or to activate the glowing properties of gems, as suggested in some ancient legends? One of the most intriguing possibilities is that the high priest's breastplate, mentioned in biblical texts, glowed with radiant light to communicate divine messages. The mystery of Dendera only deepens as we explore these possibilities. If such advanced technology existed in ancient Egypt, it's likely that much of it was lost, either destroyed or looted by invading cultures. Copper coils and precious metals from such devices would have been valuable commodities, likely scavenged and repurposed. Yet the artwork remains, a time capsule etched in stone, hinting at a lost era of technological prowess far ahead of its time.
In many ways, it was the mystery of the Sphinx that really broke everything open. It brought everything to the public attention.
Now, what we're talking about for the people that are uninformed is the idea that some of the structures in ancient Egypt are far older than conventional wisdom or conventional modern-day archaeology, modern-day Egyptologists. They would like us to believe that all of this spawned from a very specific time period.
Dynastic Egypt, as we know it, going back to about 3000 BC, was really a legacy of what I call now an earlier cycle of civilization. As a geologist with a geological eye, this was not weathered by wind and sand. This was not desert erosion and weathering that I saw on the Sphinx, the body of the Sphinx, which is very difficult to tell because it's been heavily repaired and reworked, but particularly on the walls of what are known as the Sphinx enclosure. The Sphinx enclosure is important because it preserves a lot of the details. And if the audience has not been to Egypt, they should realize that when they carved the Sphinx, it's all solid bedrock. Only the head initially was above the ground surface. They carved down into the rock to free up the body, what I call the core body of the Sphinx.
For centuries, the Great Sphinx of Giza has stood as a silent guardian of Egypt's Giza Plateau, watching over the pyramids and the Nile. Its lion's body and human head have inspired myths, legends, and scholarly debate. But beneath its imposing form lies a deeper enigma. What secrets does the Sphinx hold? And who were the architects behind its creation? The rediscovery of the Sphinx happened long after its original construction. For much of its history, it was almost entirely buried under sand, with only its head visible. In 1817, Italian explorer Captain Giovanni Battista Caviglia led an early excavation, clearing some of the sand to reveal more of the body. Yet, there were no signs of entrances or hidden chambers. The major breakthrough came in the 1920s and 1930s, when French Egyptologist Émile Barrès conducted a more systematic excavation, fully exposing the Sphinx's body. Evidence of subterranean passages led to speculation about what lay beneath this ancient monument. Could this be the legendary Hall of Records, a hidden repository of ancient knowledge? In the 1970s and 1980s, modern technology like ground-penetrating radar and seismographs was used by archaeologists such as Dr. Mark Lehner and John Anthony West. Their findings revealed anomalies, hollow spaces beneath the Sphinx, raising new questions. What were these voids for? Were they ritual chambers, tombs, or something more? These discoveries have sparked the imagination of both scholars and the public. Many speculate about ancient knowledge hidden within these tunnels and chambers which remain largely unexplored. The idea of the Hall of Records, a fabled repository of wisdom from a pre-dynastic civilization, persists, though no solid evidence has confirmed its existence. As for the dimensions of these hidden spaces, some tunnels extend nearly 30 meters, with chambers reaching heights of 5 meters. The complexity and scale of these cavities astonish researchers, as their construction would have required precise engineering to avoid damaging the Sphinx above. Could a civilization over 4,000 years ago really have achieved this with primitive tools? One particularly mysterious feature is a metal hatch discovered on the Sphinx's head during a 20th century restoration. While some believe it's a modern addition for maintenance, others suggest more fantastical possibilities. Was this hatch a secret entry to hidden chambers? Could it be a relic of a lost technology designed by the builders for some unknown purpose? The question remains, who built the Sphinx, And how did they achieve such a perfect blend of form and function? The Sphinx is an impressive 240 feet long, 66 feet high, and 62 feet wide. Carved from a single mass of limestone bedrock, its weight is estimated at 200 tons. Its dimensions are comparable to a modern football field, and its height rivals a 6-story building. Given the rudimentary copper tools available to the ancient Egyptians, this achievement seems almost impossible. While scholars attribute the construction of the Sphinx to Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BCE, some researchers believe it may be much older. Evidence of water erosion suggests the Sphinx may have been exposed to heavy rainfall centuries ago, dating it to as early as 10,000 BCE. This theory challenges conventional timelines, suggesting the Sphinx was built by an even older, lost civilization. Could the Sphinx have been constructed by a forgotten culture, equipped with knowledge and technology far beyond what we attribute to the Egyptians? The discovery of hidden chambers beneath the monument only adds to this speculation. Were these spaces used to store ancient texts, or perhaps to honor deities through ritualistic practices? Yet, as we uncover more about the Sphinx, the techniques used to build it remain just as mysterious. How did these ancient builders move and shape the enormous stone blocks? Theories abound about the construction methods. It is believed that tens of thousands of laborers worked together, using wooden sledges and water-lubricated sand to transport massive stones across the desert. While modern experiments have shown this method is possible, some argue that a lost technology or unknown knowledge must have been involved. More speculative theories propose that the builders might have used advanced tools or sound resonance to manipulate the stone. The deeper we dig into the mysteries of the Sphinx, the more questions we uncover. But one thing is certain. As we continue to explore the hidden chambers beneath the Sphinx, the story of its creation grows ever more fascinating. History, it seems, is never truly set in stone. New discoveries and secrets lie waiting to be uncovered. Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is not what the Sphinx reveals, but what it continues to keep hidden. In the shadow of the Sphinx, we are left wondering, who built this ancient monument and why? How did they achieve such precision, and what was the true purpose of the Sphinx and its surrounding megastructures? The most common theory is that the Sphinx was commissioned by Pharaoh Khafre, who also built the second largest pyramid on the Giza plateau. But some evidence calls this theory into question. Water erosion patterns on the Sphinx's body suggest it could be far older, possibly dating back to 10,000 BCE, when Egypt experienced heavier rainfall. If this is true, it would mean the Sphinx predates the Egyptian civilization by thousands of years, suggesting the existence of a forgotten culture. Could this lost civilization have been responsible for building the Sphinx? And if so, why are there no other traces of their presence? These questions fuel conspiracy theories that continue to captivate the imagination. One theory proposes that the Sphinx was built not as a tomb, but as an astronomical observatory. Its alignment with the constellation Leo during the vernal equinox suggests a connection to the stars, possibly serving as a marker of time or even a communication device with other worlds. Another theory suggests that the Sphinx and pyramids were part of an ancient energy system. Some believe the pyramids were energy generators, with the Sphinx acting as a control mechanism. The alignment of these structures with the Earth's magnetic field, combined with their proximity to the Nile, supports this idea. Though no concrete evidence backs this claim, it remains a compelling alternative explanation for their purpose. But the mysteries don't stop there. What other secrets might be hidden beneath the Sphinx? Beneath the Sphinx, unexplored chambers continue to spark speculation. Could these be the fabled Hall of Records? According to legend, this hidden vault contains the lost wisdom of an ancient civilization, possibly Atlantis. Though no one has conclusively discovered it, the search for the Hall of Records continues to intrigue explorers. And then, there are those who believe the Sphinx's builders had help from beyond this world. Extraterrestrial theories surrounding the Sphinx have persisted for decades. Some claim that the precision and scale of its construction are too advanced for the period, suggesting ancient Egyptians had assistance from extraterrestrial visitors. While this remains in the realm of science fiction, it highlights the fascination the Sphinx holds over the human imagination. Yet, even without the intervention of alien hands, the Sphinx and its surrounding pyramids are marvels of engineering. As we stand before the Sphinx, we are left with more questions than answers. What was its true purpose? Who were its builders? And why does it continue to mystify us after thousands of years? And so, the Great Sphinx of Giza remains, watching over the desert, guarding secrets that may never be fully understood. What lies beneath its pores, in hidden chambers, or in the past still waiting to be uncovered? Only time, and perhaps future discoveries, will reveal the answers. Until then, the Sphinx will keep its secrets, waiting patiently for the day when we are ready to understand what it truly has to tell us.
There's something called the Osiris shaft, which is located directly under the causeway between the Sphinx and the second pyramid. It goes about 100 feet underground. It's carved out of the limestone bedrock. It's the creepiest place I've ever been in my life. It's disturbing. So it's 3 different shafts, and you go down, and here's where it gets, this is the crazy part. When you get to the 3rd level, which is completely dark and freaky, there was a side tunnel. Zahi Hawass himself, there was a documentary, went down there, and he's standing in front of this tunnel that went sideways, and he says, it's yet to be explored, and I don't know what's down there, but Joe, they've since sealed it up. It's like cinder blocks, they sealed it up.
What?
Yes! There are things that have gone underground in Egypt that, for whatever reason, Joe, is just off limits to the public.
Beneath the Giza Plateau, near the Great Sphinx and pyramids, lies a mysterious structure that may reshape our understanding of ancient Egypt. Known as the Osiris Shaft, this subterranean complex challenges conventional timelines. Could it predate the pyramids? And what was its true purpose? Recent discoveries and a groundbreaking dating method have led Egyptologists to rethink what they thought they knew about this ancient civilization. The Osiris Shaft descends 35 meters into the bedrock beneath the causeway leading to the Sphinx. It comprises multiple levels, with the lowest chamber housing a granite sarcophagus surrounded by water. This chamber is sometimes referred to as the Tomb of Osiris. But what exactly was this structure intended for? Its purpose remains shrouded in mystery, with no clear answers in sight. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Osiris Shaft is the unusual material used in one of the sarcophagi. Egyptologists discovered a stone unlike anything previously found in Egypt. How did it end up here, deep in the bedrock? Even stranger, the structure itself seems to have been designed without easy access in mind. There are no steps or ladders leading down to its depths. The ones installed now were placed there by modern archaeologists, suggesting that the ancient builders had no intention of facilitating frequent visits. The logistics of moving the massive sarcophagi, some weighing up to 40 tons, further deepen the mystery. How were they lowered with such precision into the shaft, which itself was not designed for easy entry or exit? The precision required to lower these gigantic objects without error suggests a technological ability that we do not fully understand. One sarcophagus found on the 2nd level was particularly remarkable. It was covered in a thin film of bitumen, with a metallic coating beneath it. This metal, containing elements like lead and zinc, is puzzling. Why use a metallic coating inside a sarcophagus? Lead, in particular, raises questions, as it is known today for its use in radiation shielding. Could the ancient Egyptians have been aware of this? Moreover, measurements showed unusually high levels of gamma radiation inside the sarcophagus, further hinting at a function beyond burial. The method used to date one of these sarcophagi, called optical thermoluminescence, measures the last time the stone was exposed to light. The results suggested a date as far back as 3,350 BCE, centuries before the accepted construction dates of the pyramids. This implies that the Osiris shaft could predate the pyramids and the earliest dynasties of Egypt. What's even more curious is the material of one sarcophagus, dacite, an igneous rock not found anywhere in Egypt. In fact, after consulting with geologists, it was confirmed that there are no significant dacite deposits in Africa large enough to produce a sarcophagus of this size. This means the stone was transported from outside the continent, perhaps from Europe or the Black Sea. The logistics of transporting a 40-ton block of stone across seas and deserts remains a mystery. Why didn't the builders use locally sourced granite or basalt, which would have been far easier to acquire? This discovery challenges long-standing views on ancient Egypt's chronology. The dating method used reveals a time well before the pyramids, offering a glimpse into a distant past. Could the Osiris shaft represent the work of a forgotten civilization, one whose achievements have been lost to time? As we explore the depths of the shaft, more questions emerge. Was the shaft's design deliberate, meant to preserve the dead using unknown methods? Could the high radiation levels within the sarcophagi have played a role in ancient preservation techniques? The builders of this structure may have known things we have yet to uncover. As archaeologists delve deeper into the Osiris shaft, they challenge established notions of ancient Egypt. On the third and deepest level, a stone island surrounded by water holds yet another granite sarcophagus. This time, the sarcophagus is made of granite, a material more common in Egyptian structures. However, its location deep underground and surrounded by water raises further questions. This sarcophagus dates to around 2370 BCE, placing it in the Old or Middle Kingdom. Interestingly, the design of the third level seems to be a later addition to the shaft, suggesting the site may have been used and modified over centuries. If true, this means the Osiris shaft was considered important long before the time of the pyramids. One of the most intriguing features of the third level is the water system. A meticulously shaped canal surrounds the chamber, and the water level appears to be maintained at a precise depth. How did the builders engineer such a system over 100 feet underground? The bedrock in this area is solid, making natural water leaks unlikely. This suggests that the builders tapped into a hidden water source, possibly through an underground channel or spring. At the Osirion, another ancient Egyptian site, similar subterranean water channels have been discovered, indicating that the ancient builders had advanced knowledge of hydroengineering. Water was often seen as a source of life and regeneration, and its presence in the Osiris shaft may have had symbolic significance in ancient rituals related to death and rebirth. This brings us to the connection between the shaft and Osiris, the Egyptian god of the dead and the underworld. According to myth, Osiris was resurrected in a sarcophagus placed on an island surrounded by water. The third level of the shaft closely mirrors this imagery. Could the builders have been trying to replicate the tomb of Osiris? Or was this part of a deeper religious practice? Oddly, the sarcophagi found in the Osiris shaft are devoid of inscriptions, which is unusual for ancient Egyptian tombs. This absence of hieroglyphs has led some scholars to suggest that these sarcophagi were not intended for traditional burials, but served a different, perhaps secretive, purpose. Adding to the mystery, researchers detected significant levels of radiation inside the sarcophagi. Combined with the lead coating found on the second level, this suggests that the sarcophagi might have had an advanced preservative function, something we do not yet fully understand. If the ancient Egyptians had knowledge of radiation's effects on preservation, it would represent a technological leap far beyond what we currently attribute to their civilization. Beyond the physical mysteries, the Osiris shaft raises important questions about the origins of Egyptian civilization. The dating of the second-level sarcophagus to as early as 3350 BCE points to a pre-dynastic origin, making the shaft one of the oldest structures in Egypt. As we continue to investigate the Osiris shaft, the possibility of discovering hidden chambers artifacts, or tunnels remains high. The Osiris shaft is rewriting our understanding of ancient Egypt and perhaps even pointing to a forgotten chapter in human history.
Egypt, land of pharaohs and pyramids, where time itself seemed to bow before the weight of millennia. Yet by the mid-4th century BC, this once mighty civilization was a shadow of its former glory, its people yearning for a savior. From the north, a young king, barely out of his teens, swept across the known world, conquering all in his path. Alexander the Great. His eyes were set on the Persian Empire, and Egypt lay directly in his path. But what awaited Alexander in the land of the Nile was not the fierce resistance he expected. Instead, he found a people desperate for liberation, a culture ripe for transformation, and a destiny that would intertwine his name with the very soul of Egypt. Forever. This is the story of how a conqueror became a pharaoh, a god, and a legend. This is the story of Alexander in Egypt.
By the mid-4th century BC, Egypt was a land where time seemed to stand still. The ancient pyramids, like the step pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, had watched over the desert sands for over 2 millennia. The legacies of pharaohs like Nefertiti, Akhenaten, and Tutankhamun were already 1,000 years old, their names whispers on the desert wind. Yet Egypt's glory had faded due to foreign invasions and internal strife, leaving its people yearning for revival. In 332 BC, as the sun bathed the Nile in gold, a young Macedonian king named Alexander appeared. Barely in his 20s, Alexander the Great had already carved a path of conquest across the known world. His eyes were set on the Persian Empire, which spanned from the Aegean Sea to India. In just 2 years, he had crushed Persian power in battles like Issus, defeating King Darius III, and had taken the cities of Tyre and Gaza. As Alexander approached Egypt's borders, anticipation hung in the air. The land was under Persian rule, governed by satraps who had oppressed the Egyptians. Memories lingered of Persian kings like Cambyses II and Artaxerxes III, accused of desecrating temples and killing the sacred Apis bull, an affront to Egyptian faith. The Egyptians, burdened by these offences, watched as Alexander's army neared. But instead of resistance, Alexander was welcomed with open arms. Egyptian priests and nobles saw him as a liberator who would free them from Persian domination. The Persian governor surrendered without a fight. As Alexander entered Memphis, the traditional capital along the Nile, the city erupted in celebration. Amid Memphis's grandeur, with its towering temples and bustling bazaars, Alexander showed wisdom beyond his years. He honored his Macedonian heritage by hosting Greek athletic games and musical contests, filling the air with music and cheers. Yet he also immersed himself in Egyptian culture. Most profoundly, he paid homage to the Apis bull, a sacred animal symbolizing kingship and divinity. In the sanctuaries of Memphis, Alexander approached the priests of Apis. The bull, adorned with divine symbols, embodied Ptah in life and Osiris after death. By sacrificing to Apis, Alexander did more than perform a ritual. He bridged 2 worlds. The Egyptians saw in him a ruler who respected their gods and traditions, a stark contrast to past Persian sacrilege. Word spread along the Nile. The new pharaoh honored the old ways. This gesture resonated deeply with the people. In the Serapeum at Saqqara, where massive granite sarcophagi housed mummified Apis bulls, priests might have whispered prayers of gratitude. Though it's uncertain if Alexander visited these catacombs, his reverence left an indelible mark. As the sun set over the Nile, casting shadows across the temples, Alexander stood at destiny's crossroads. Egypt had embraced him, and he embraced its spirit. He was no longer just a conqueror, he was becoming part of Egypt's eternal story. But his journey was far from over. The whispers of oracles and the allure of divine favor beckoned him further. Greater challenges and revelations awaited, a path that would intertwine his fate with Egypt in unimaginable ways. With the Nile receding behind him, Alexander gazed toward the Mediterranean. An idea took root, a city bearing his name, standing as a beacon of knowledge and culture. On shores where sea met delta, he founded Alexandria. Meticulously planned with wide avenues and grand edifices, the city embodied a fusion of Greek and Egyptian aesthetics. It was to be a hub where scholars and merchants from all corners converged. Yet a deeper calling stirred within Alexander, a yearning to understand his place in the cosmos. Tales reached him of the oracle of Amun at the Siwa oasis, a mystical sanctuary deep in the Libyan desert where gods spoke through priests. Undeterred by the treacherous journey, Alexander led a small contingent across unforgiving sands. The desert tested them with scorching days and cold nights, but they pressed on, guided by omens and stars. At last, Siwa's verdant palms emerged like a mirage made real. Upon arrival, priests greeted Alexander with reverence, calling him the son of Amun, a declaration that shook him. Entering the sacred temple, he stood before the god's effigy, the air thick with incense and ancient weight. What transpired remains a mystery, but when he emerged, his countenance had changed. The divine had spoken, affirming his destiny not just as a king, but as a god among men. This revelation was more than personal enlightenment. It was a powerful tool. Proclaimed the son of Amun, whom Greeks identified with Zeus, Alexander's authority now had divine backing. This elevated status resonated in Egypt, where pharaohs were seen as gods on earth. Returning, Alexander's army rested along the Nile's banks. Soldiers mingled with locals, stories were exchanged, cultures intertwined. In spring 331 BC, with the Nile rising, Alexander prepared to depart. His gaze turned eastward toward Persia's remaining might, but Egypt had left its mark on him. Evidence of his impact endured long after. In Thebes, at Luxor Temple, artisans carved his likeness into stone. Within the holiest chambers, Alexander was depicted not as a foreign conqueror, but as a traditional Egyptian pharaoh. Clad in royal regalia, he offered tributes to gods like Amun-Ra, his features immortalized alongside ancient rulers. These images were more than art. They symbolized a new era. Alexander's embrace of Egyptian customs signified a cultural fusion that would shape the region for centuries. Egyptians saw in him a continuation of their divine lineage. Greeks found in Egypt a wellspring of wisdom. As years unfolded, Alexandria flourished beyond imagination. The great library amassed knowledge from across the world, becoming a beacon of learning. The lighthouse of pharaohs rose from the harbor, its light guiding sailors, a metaphor for the enlightenment the city offered. But fate is inexorable. At 32, Alexander's life was cut short, his vast empire left without its unifying force. In Egypt, however, his legacy endured. The Ptolemaic dynasty, founded by his general Ptolemy, continued the synthesis of Greek and Egyptian cultures. Cleopatra, the last of the Ptolemies, became a symbol of this enduring fusion. His footprints may have faded, but his influence is carved into Egypt's bedrock. The stories, monuments, and cultural tapestry bear witness to when history was forever altered. Alexander the Great became more than a name. He became a legend woven into Egypt's eternal narrative.
There are huge areas of the world that have never been looked at by archaeology at all. Of course, the most important are the flooded continental shelves. Santa and I spent 7 years of our lives scuba diving all around the world. You're coming across statues underwater, you're coming across columns underwater. It's just magical, diving on an underwater city.
Beneath the waves of Egypt's Abu Qir Bay lies a mystery that has baffled archaeologists for decades. Lost cities, submerged beneath the sea, their secrets hidden in the depths.
You have to be careful when you look at underwater structures. You have to look at all the conditions that have led to their submergence.
How did the once thriving city of Manuthis vanish beneath the waves? Join us as we dive into this underwater mystery, exploring the theories behind its sudden disappearance and uncovering the treasures that lie hidden beneath the surface.
I want to know what else is going to be found that hasn't been investigated yet at all. We're just touching the edge of a huge mystery.
The submerged city of Manuthis, nestled near Abu Qir Bay, close to Canopus and Alexandria, has emerged as a cornerstone of underwater archaeology, revealing the intricate cultural and religious tapestry of the Greco-Egyptian era. Discovered by Frank Gordillo and his team, this exploration shed light on the daily life and significance of Manuthis before it was engulfed by the Mediterranean. Frank Gordillo, a pioneer in underwater archaeology, led his team through methodical survey processes using state-of-the-art sonar and geomagnetic equipment. This technology was crucial in detecting anomalies that hinted at submerged structures and formed the backbone of their exploratory efforts. The initial phase of exploration involved detailed surveys using side-scan sonar and magnetometers, which provided the first glimpse of Manuthis beneath the silt.
The Nile carries a lot of silt with it, a lot of earth with it, as it flows out of Uganda and out of Ethiopia.
These surveys revealed the outlines of buried structures and were instrumental in mapping potential excavation sites. To further enhance their understanding of the underwater terrain and the depth of sediment layers, the team employed advanced remote sensing technologies, including multi-beam echo sounders and sub-bottom profilers. These tools helped create a three-dimensional map of the seabed, which was pivotal for planning the excavation process. However, the team faced significant challenges due to the dynamic conditions of the underwater environment near Abu Qir Bay. The heavy accumulation of silt, typical in the Nile Delta region, not only buried artifacts and structures but also reduced underwater visibility, complicating both excavation and documentation processes. The shifting currents and tides could expose or rebury artifacts between survey sessions, requiring the team to continuously monitor conditions and respond quickly to windows of opportunity. Additionally, the saline environment and the presence of silt presented major preservation challenges, necessitating immediate conservation efforts to prevent corrosion and biological growth on the artifacts once they were brought to the surface. To mitigate these challenges, the team employed divers specialized in underwater archaeology who used hydraulic suction tubes to delicately remove silt and uncover artifacts. This technique minimized damage to the delicate items. Documentation was another critical aspect of the excavation, with high-resolution photography and videography playing key roles. In many instances, 3D modeling techniques were utilized to capture the exact condition and position of structures and artifacts before they were disturbed. Once artifacts were recovered, they were immediately placed in specially designed conservation containers filled with a stabilizing solution to prevent further decay from exposure to air, ensuring the preservation of these invaluable historical items. Continuing the exploration of Manuthis, the archaeological discoveries have indeed provided a vivid picture of the city's architectural prowess, daily and ceremonial life, and even the geological reasons behind its submersion.
The submergence of those sites is largely because of subsidence of land rather than sea level rise, because it's relatively recent.
The structural remains unearthed in Manuthis point to its significant buildings, which were likely central to both the city's daily and communal activities. These buildings were constructed using large limestone blocks. The sophisticated engineering techniques needed to quarry, shape, and transport these massive blocks hint at the advanced architectural knowledge and structural integrity of that era. It's likely that levers, ramps, and possibly wooden rollers were used in their placement, techniques that mirror other Egyptian constructions from the same period. The range of ceramics discovered provides further insights into the lifestyle in Manuthis. From simple domestic wares to intricately designed ceremonial pieces, the ceramics display a blend of Egyptian and Greek styles, reflecting the cultural fusion during the Ptolemaic period. These items, varying from everyday storage and cooking uses to those in religious rituals or as luxury household items, offer a glimpse into the daily and ceremonial lives of its inhabitants.
Ancient cultures all around the world preserved a memory of a high civilization.
Statuary found at the site also speaks volumes about the cultural and religious life in Manuthis. Crafted from durable materials like granite and marble, these statues, often over 2 meters tall and weighing more than 500 kilograms, depicted deities and significant figures, suggesting their role in reinforcing a sense of divine presence or royal authority within public spaces or temples. Regarding why Manuthis ended up underwater, one compelling theory involves geological and climatic changes. The city was built on the geologically unstable Nile Delta, prone to subsidence, a gradual sinking of the land.
All that silt is then dumped in the Nile Delta, and there were constructions were made on top of it.
This subsidence, possibly exacerbated by the weight of the city's structures and the delta's soft sedimentary soil, combined with sea level changes from climatic shifts or seismic events, might have led to the gradual inundation of Manuthis over the centuries. Manuthis, though not as expansive as Alexandria, was intricately laid out to support its population and their activities, suggesting it covered several square kilometers. With a network of streets, marketplaces, and residential areas, and its location along the coast, it likely also served as a minor port or trading post, facilitating trade between the Nile interior and the Mediterranean. This urban layout not only supported its role in commerce, but also its cultural and social structure, making it a bustling hub of activity in ancient times. Just as the city of Manuthis provided deep insights into ancient Greco-Egyptian culture, so too does the rediscovery of Canopus, located near the modern village of Abukir and close to the ancient city of Thonis Heracleion. Canopus, brought back to light by Frank Gaudio and his team, showcases the religious and architectural richness of ancient Egypt. Frank Gaudio's exploratory campaign revealed Canopus through advanced underwater archaeology techniques. Utilizing sophisticated sonar technology, magnetometers, and sub-bottom profilers, Gaudio's team successfully identified significant anomalies that matched the expected locations of architectural structures under the seabed. The initial surveys disclosed the outlines of temple complexes and other significant constructions, indicating the potential scale and importance of Canopus, which had been hidden beneath layers of sediment and marine growth. Among the most striking findings in Canopus were the expansive temple complexes and sanctuaries dedicated to Egyptian gods, particularly Osiris. The main temple structures were quite large, with some remains suggesting dimensions of over 50 meters in length and more than 20 meters wide. These vast areas were clearly designed to accommodate large numbers of pilgrims, highlighting their importance as major religious centers. The construction materials of these temples were primarily limestone and granite, with giant blocks weighing up to 10 tons each. These materials were not only selected for their durability, but also for their aesthetic qualities, vital for such culturally and religiously significant structures. Moreover, the temples featured intricate carvings and hieroglyphics that were both decorative and narrative, telling the stories and rituals associated with the deities worshipped within. The sanctuaries also yielded a wide array of artifacts that paint a vivid picture of the religious practices and daily life surrounding these structures. Numerous statues, mainly crafted from granite and basalt, have been recovered. These statues, which vary in size with some standing several meters tall and weighing hundreds of kilograms, often depict gods and goddesses and were intended as focal points of worship. Additionally, ritual objects such as ceremonial cups, incense burners, and offerings tables were found, crafted from materials like alabaster and bronze, which signify their sacred uses and the affluence of the temple complexes. Canopus was not only a significant site for the worship of Osiris, but also played a central role during the Mysteries of Osiris, an annual festival that drew devotees from across the region. This underscores the religious importance of the city. The art and architecture of Canopus reflect a blend of Greek and Egyptian influences, typical of the Hellenistic period in Egypt, evident in the hybrid designs of the temples and the iconography of the statuary. The reason Canopus found itself submerged is largely attributed to geological processes such as subsidence and rising sea levels over the millennia. Built on the unstable sediments of the Nile Delta, the city was vulnerable to the shifting land masses and the slow encroachment of the Mediterranean Sea, processes that gradually led to its submersion and preserved its relics beneath the sea.